Now then, we've been developing our double stroke roll technique. Now we're going to do another exercise which is focusing on the double stroke itself in the context of the single strokes. So what we do is we introduce a double stroke on one of each of 4 beats. So it's based on a pattern of 4 lots of 4 semiquavers, which is... There's 3 sections to this exercise. The first section is single double strokes in the group of 4. So we begin by putting a double stroke on beat 1, do that 4 times, and then we put a double stroke on beat 2, and then a double stroke on beat 3, and then a double stroke on beat 4. So I'll just demonstrate that to you now. So that's the principle of the first section of this exercise. Now the second section is to use 2 lots of double strokes. So we're going to put 2 lots of double strokes, one on 1 and one on 2. So it's 1 and 2, and then 2 and 3, and then 3 and 4, and then 4 and 1. So that's alternative hands. And then we move to beats 1 and 3, which is double strokes on the right hand, and then 2 and 4, which is double strokes on the left hand. So I'll demonstrate this second section to you. So that's the second section, and so the third section is to put double beats on 3 out of the 4. Now I find it easier to explain if I say we will have only 1 single stroke. So we place that first single stroke on beat 4, the second single stroke on beat 3, and then the third time is on beat 2, and then the fourth time with the single stroke on beat 1. So I'll demonstrate that to you now. And then we end the exercise with all of them as double strokes. Okay, so you'll find it easier in the early stages to put a bunch of 4 single strokes between each double stroke exercise. So I'll play the whole exercise to you now, and hopefully you'll understand what I mean. Okay, so that hopefully demonstrates that exercise to you. Okay, so we're going to do the same exercise or the same principles, but now in 3 time. in triplets. So again, it's 4 groups of triplets, and we're going to double stroke number 1, then number 2, then number 3. And then we're going to double stroke number 1 and 2, then 2 and 3, and then 3 and 1. And then we'll finish with all of the triplet notes played as double strokes. Okay, so that's going to sound like this. Okay, so those 2 exercises are going to help us to focus on the double strokes. And again, we're looking for nice open sound, nice evenness of sound. The first and the second strikes of the double stroke are equal in volume and equal to the single strokes also. It's quite a technical exercise, there's a lot to think about, so be patient with it. It can take you quite a long way in terms of your technique. Okay, thank you. In this lesson, we've been working on developing the finger double stroke roll technique. And the exercises that we've been learning today are all specific to that technique. But there's one thing we've omitted in this lesson, and that is actually practicing the roll itself. Because although in these exercises the roll's fairly short, we need to be able to play the roll for longer periods of time. So it's a good idea to practice the roll just itself, just the roll in itself, like we did in the last lesson. I'm just going to do that for you now. Now that we've got some more exercises, I'm just going to go through the double stroke roll. Okay, I'd just like to talk a little bit about the double stroke roll and put it into context, especially in relation to its competitor, if you like, the multi-bounce roll. Now, we will be talking about the multi-bounce roll or the closed roll in a few lessons' time, but today we're talking about the double stroke roll. Now, the reason why we roll is to produce a sustained note on our snare drum. It's actually really difficult to do that, especially on a marching band. The modern marching drums they have a very tight head, and the sound of the fiber skin head is really tight. It's a tiny precise noise. So to make that sustain is really difficult. But the reason why they're so tight is because the drum line needs to demonstrate their ability to play in perfect time. You might have 9, 10, maybe more snare drummers, and you want to demonstrate that you can all play absolutely perfectly in time, so that it sounds like only one person's playing. If you imagine that there's 10, let's say 10 for argument's sake, 10 drummers and they're all playing slightly at a time, instead of getting that nice clean or that nice clean sound, you're just going to get a horrible noise. We're going from to and it just sounds rubbish, terrible. So yeah, but if we want to make that much more complicated, when we're doing a roll, we're not talking about one note now, we're talking about lots of notes, but they all need to be perfectly in time. Every single strike needs to be perfectly in time, so every single strike can be defined as that noise. Okay, so the open double stroke roll provides the opportunity for a competing drum line to demonstrate their ability to play a sustained sound, but also to play perfectly in time. And there's a great moment for me, particularly for me, there's a great moment for me in the Blue Devils 1989 show. They played a piece called Allegri. Now, this was my favourite show. I had this video. It's a bootleg copy, and it was a real treasured thing for me. I used to watch it over and over again, even though the recording was absolutely terrible. It had been copied so many times that every individual on this field had about 3 shadows, which made viewing the sticks almost impossible. But the sound was good, and I loved the music. Anyway, in this piece, the Blue Devils decided to play an open double stroke roll, and I remember thinking, for 12 beats, and I remember thinking, why did you throw those 12 beats away and waste it on a roll? You could have done backsticking or flams or whatever, but you just decided to do an open double stroke roll for 12 whole beats. Now, I didn't realise at the time, but I seriously missed the point. The thing was, they wanted to demonstrate their ability to play perfectly in time. And I can imagine if you were on the field watching, or in the stadium watching, that roll at that time must have been really powerful and loud, and a real moment in the show, I would have thought. So yeah, I mean, that really kind of gives you an idea of the importance and the background of the open double stroke roll and how it relates to the multi-bounce roll, which we will talk about. And again, on the drum kit, it's quite useful to be able to use roll, if the double stroke roll, if you've got your toms tuned up quite tight, then you can get more clearly defined beats, and therefore you can play faster using the double stroke roll down the toms. Okay, thank you. Just shake out a little bit.